And we're live. How you like that? Just to play the little intro music, we pop in live. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Tedora. They call me the Sports Trader. And for today, I'm going to be that guy who's the host of the show. And on my left over there, right over there on that side, we call him the Sports Nerd. His name is Lance Fernandez. Lance used to write for Fox News, now works for us over at What's on Sports as our lead writer. Lance, how you doing today, buddy?
Oh, just keeping it positive and just enjoying life in general.
Yeah, that's the one thing about you. You're always keeping it positive. No matter what, nothing seems to rattle you. I love that about you. Now, we're going to be diving into a lot of sports stuff today. Like, we got a tremendous amount of sports stuff to cover today. And we're going to have a special show today where we're going to be talking about all this quarterback movement. Like, there's going to be a lot of quarterback movement going on. But before we do any of that, before we jump into any of that, we got to jump into some breaking news. Things that are happening right now around the world. We got to find out what's going on and keep people updated. So we're going to go to Lance. Lance lives on Twitter. He's always finding out the newest stuff from his sources and things like that. So Lance, why don't you tell us what's happening around the world?
Okay, so since we are having like a predominantly NFL show, so we're going to have quick fire news NFL related as well. So first breaking news, and a sad news that is, Vincent Jackson passed away at age 38. So he was found at the Homewood Suites in Tampa Bay, and he has been staying there for like a month since January 11th. So authorities found him dead Monday in that hotel room, and there's no definite reason for the death or cause of death yet. But as always, when somebody in the NFL, be it a player, coach, or any contributor, passes away, it always leaves a bitter taste to the fans.
Yeah, to me, Jackson was like one of the first really like big receivers that I remember. The guy was just huge, just such a large man, and really, to me, never got the credit for being a really good receiver. I don't know if he was great, but he was really good. He was a game changer for sure. Big play guy. When you start to hear about a guy who just spent, January, February in a hotel, he's been living in a hotel for 6-7 weeks, ends up dying in the hotel. I mean, that's just really leads you to believe that maybe his life took a bad turn, which would be very, very sad that the guy, like sports is sports, but the reality of it is the guy pretty much had everything. And now he died alone in a hotel room. I don't want to hope it's natural causes because that sounds terrible, but for the sake of this discussion, I really hope it's natural causes and not something drug related. I hope his life didn't make a turn like that. But rest in peace, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, rest in peace indeed. Yeah, that's the problem with some NFL players. Maybe they don't save enough. So once their career is over, and playing the most violent sport in the world, you don't know when it's over. So that's a sad fact for these NFL players. So unfortunately, maybe that's where Jackson's career went to. And it's just very unfortunate to see him see his demise in this way.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate like that, but you make a good point. And I think really the point is it's hard to go from being that guy to the other guy. Like, it's hard from going to be the guy who's getting all this attention from the girls and from people and from the media, and people are in front of your locker. They want to ask you questions. And when you stop playing, nobody wants to talk to you anymore. Like, you're no longer a relevant individual. And I think that's a very tough thing for the guys. That and the camaraderie that's built inside these locker rooms. When you listen to these guys talk, that's the one thing the guys really miss. They miss the other guys. So you're around all these guys. You're part of something that's larger than you, and it's really hard to replace that if you're not really set up for the next stage in your life. I wonder. I don't think Jackson. If I recall, I don't believe Jackson left of his own volition. I believe he just kind of faded away. Like, he didn't retire. I think at one point nobody wanted him anymore, and that's actually even harder. So when you get kind of like pushed out of the league at 32, 31, 32 years old, you're still young. You don't know what to do next, and you have to find your way in life. It's got to be tough. And again, we're speculating completely about what happened to the guy. But just when you hear a guy's been living in a hotel for the last 6 weeks, you just realize that something happened. Like, that you don't just go live in a hotel because you think, oh, this is going to be great. Something happened to make you live in that hotel. So rest in peace, Jackson. And let's move on to our next story. Hopefully it'll be a little more upbeat.
Yeah, condolences to the family that he left behind as well. So speaking of somebody who always is in the attention, we have a former NFL cornerback, Adam Pacman Jones, again arrested and charged with a misdemeanor assault. So, former NFL cornerback Adam Jones has found himself in trouble with the law again. So, it has been reported that he has been arrested in Cincinnati and charged with a misdemeanor assault. I believe that he went into a bar and he assaulted one of the guards or like one of the bouncers there. So, and his reason for doing that is because, according to his own words, he just had to. So again,
Yeah.
Pacman Jones, checkered history, pretty much a good player, average, I guess. But he is known for these antics.
Well, look, I want to comment on the Pac-Man Jones things. Before I do, we've already got some comments happening. We are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. We do get some comments. If you guys make comments, we will put them up on the screen. Good, bad, and different. We just got our first one in here by Silent Hoops, who is saying that he is present and accounted for. The reason I'm mentioning it again is because that's a great logo. I'm not even sure what it means, but it's Silent Hoops. That's an awesome logo, buddy. And glad to have you on board listening. Pac-Man Jones is an interesting guy. You know, drafted, I think, number 6 overall by Tennessee. He was drafted really as a dual threat, supposed to be a shutdown corner and a return man. And hang on, not LeBron James is here too. I just had to. Solid reason. And his logo says 24. Yeah, I know it says 24, but I don't know what it means. It says Silent Hoops. So I don't know what the logo means. It's a cool logo. I just don't know what it means. Anyway, so Pac-Man Jones. Pac-Man Jones is an interesting character because to me, Pac-Man Jones had the potential to be, you know, a Deion Sanders guy. And I think Tennessee thought so too. He had a couple okay years in Tennessee. I wouldn't say he was an average player. I thought he was a pretty good player, but he had a ton of problems. I mean, this guy's in a fight every other day. If you go on YouTube, there's a video of him. Literally, he's walking through an airport in Atlanta carrying like some fried chicken, and somehow he gets into a fight with some guy that works in the airport. Like, I have no idea why. He knocks the guy on his ass. I mean, he fights like he fights in such a bizarre way for a guy that's always in fights. He's like throwing like overhand punches. It's absolutely awful. But he ends up knocking the guy down who's bigger than he is, but is a worse fighter than he is. So it's actually pretty funny. I hate to see Pac-Man Jones and all these problems. When you see him interviewed, he definitely seems like a really decent guy. He's either got some anger issues or, you know, according to his story that I did hear him actually speak on the story, he said that he was at the club. The police showed up. When the police showed up, he was in his Rolls Royce pulling away, and the police stopped him and pulled him over. So he didn't get a DUI. So he wasn't drunk, but it's obviously there's some type of violence thing going on there. The story, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lance, because you know the story better than I do, but the story the way I understood it is that he got into a fight and he kicked the guy, and he kicked the guy unconscious or something like that. It was a pretty violent fight, apparently. So I don't know. Is that right? Is that what you heard?
That's pretty much an accurate. That's pretty much an accurate depiction of what happened. And well, we can only hope that Pac-Man Jones will improve from this situation. He's been known by being this kind of person ever since he was playing. So I just hope that he'll be able to clean up his reputation as he grows older, because it's not improving for him. He's not in the league anymore. He's not getting top dollar as an NFL player.
Yeah.
So I guess more frustrations come in because he's not getting that amount of money anymore, and that's why he remains this violent of a person.
I don't know if that's why. Listen, I think that it's in some of us. You know, as I grew up, I had these tendencies myself. I grew out of them. Maturity took over, and I grew out of them a little bit. But when you're raised in a violent society, if you're raised in a violent environment, and it's only compounded by the fact that you now have a very violent job, I don't think it ever leaves you. So this may be an issue that follows him forever, and it also may be an issue where he's always going to be in the middle of something he shouldn't be in the middle of. And that happens to a lot of guys too. I know guys that are some of the nicest guys in the world in Miami, some really nice guys, always in the middle of some shit, always in the middle of something. And it's like, that guy's such a nice guy when you talk to him. He's such a good heart, good soul, always in the middle of some shit. And I've been around a lot of football players, and it just feels like those guys have to be careful because they are magnets for trouble. Trouble will find them. Somebody will know who they are and somehow seek them out and just cause trouble around them. So these guys, it's not easy being Pac-Man Jones, especially with the reputation that he has. So hopefully it all works out. Hopefully he didn't commit a crime. and hopefully he can move on with his life, like you said. And I think he's got a couple kids now. He's got a wife, so he doesn't need that in his life. So, you got any positive news? Anything positive happened in the last couple days? One guy died. One guy went to jail. What else happened?
Apparently, let's continue with the somber news in the NFL. So, speaking of troubles, Urban Meyer just became the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's already embroiled in trouble by hiring a former University of Iowa strength and conditioning coach, Chris Doyle. But apparently, Chris Doyle resigned from Jacksonville because more players or former players of the Hawkeyes came out for his alleged mistreatment of African American players. But knowing this background, Urban Meyer should have had vetoed the hiring of Chris Doyle. He should have had seen this beforehand, given that it's already the NFL and we have a woke culture right now. So he will be crucified for this.
Look, we talked about this before, actually. You and I talked about this off air, and I know my opinion is not a popular one in today's society, but I'll give it anyway. And my opinion is quite simply this. I don't know what Chris Doyle said before. I don't know what he's guilty of from before. I understand that there were some players that complained about the way he treated them. Now, to me, if you're going to hire somebody like that, you talk to him about his past and you make sure that it doesn't happen again. I think that as employees, and that's all these people are, is they're employees. They're just like you. They're just like me. We work for somebody. If we make mistakes in our lives, it can't be held against us to the point where we can never hold a job again. That's not fair. It just isn't. So I don't know what crimes Chris Doyle is guilty of committing. I understand that vaguely, like I said, I understand vaguely what people were talking about, but I don't know exactly what he said. Now, again, this could be two players that said they were treated poorly, or it could have been 75 players on the University of Iowa football team. I don't know that information, but I will say that I do find it a little unfair that once you screw up, once somebody says that you're not a good person, that you can no longer ever work again. I don't agree with that. So I would like to know more information. This is now being tried in the court of public opinion. Otherwise, I wouldn't say I deserve any information. But since it's now being tried in the court of public opinion, I would love to know the information as to what Mr. Doyle did before, exactly, at least of what he's being accused of before, so I can have a better understanding of what he did. But it is a shame that the guy worked there for, I think, a day, and then he left. So
yeah. So more than two former players of the University of Iowa, actually came out with tweets. So there's this one player who was vehemently against the hiring of Chris Doyle, and then it just brought out a laundry list of all the egregiousness that Chris Doyle committed allegedly in the University of Iowa. So it's just
were there any details though of things that he did?
It's mostly about commenting because they were African American. There were some innuendos, so to speak, of being African American, and Doyle was able to include it in the statement. So I guess that's how it went. Okay. And apparently, piggybacking on your point, we just live in a stage nowadays wherein all of your dirt will be unearthed, sadly, because all of information is there.
Let me just say something though, really quick. And if you've ever played sports with people that are of other ethnicities and other races, that's how you talk in a locker room. I don't know what he said, but when I was in a locker room, like, the black guys made fun of the white guys. The white guys made fun of the black guys. It wasn't meant to be a malicious thing. It was like, you're my friend, and I'm gonna bust on you a little bit because you're Hispanic or I'm Italian or he's a black. That's just what people do. So if you ever hear athletes talk, they say those things to each other all the time. So it's unfortunate because once you cross that line, some people cross the line too far. And I think that's what happens when you hear about these situations. Someone didn't understand what the line was. Like, look, listen, we're just going to go a little bit of like past this line. We're not going to go all the way. And maybe what Doyle did is he went a little too far. I don't know, but it's just a shame that the guy lost his job. Maybe he deserved not to have a job again. I don't know what the story is. So what else you got? Anything else?
That's our quick fire news for today, John.
All right, all quickfire news is out of the way. That was some really depressing quickfire news. Before we go any further, I'll let you guys know if you have comments, leave them in the comments section. We'll be happy to respond to you if it's a good comment. I also want to let you know that the show today is brought to you by our friends over at What's on Sports and a brand new product that they have called the $2 Sports Club. Now, we'll be telling you more about the $2 Sports Club later on, but if you want to go, there's a link at the bottom of the it's somewhere in the description. You can go check out the link and check out the $2 Sports Club today. The amount of stuff that you're going to get for $2 is absolutely unreal. It's the best deal in sports right now. You go over there right now and check out the $2 Sports Club. Follow the link in the bottom of the description. Now, everybody's talking about quarterbacks, Lance. Everybody's been talking about quarterbacks this entire offseason. The new thing in the NFL is going to be this attempt to do quarterback movement. These guys want to move around like they do in the NBA. They want to be able to move around. Unfortunately, for a lot of these guys, contracts in the NFL are not structured that way. So, for example, a guy like Russell Wilson, who if he wants out of Seattle, for Seattle to move Russell Wilson, they would take a $40 million cap hit this year, which would cripple the team for an entire year. So guys like him are really hard to move, but players are making an attempt. They're making an attempt to actually make this happen. So today's show is going to be completely dedicated to which quarterbacks are going to be moving and where they're going to be moving to. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to break it down by each division as we go along. We're going to start off with the AFC East. AFC East. Let's talk about some of the quarterbacks in the AFC East. Let's decide if they're going to move. If they're going to move, what their value is. If they're free agents, where they could end up right now. Let's start with the AFC East. Who you got?
Okay, so let's start with the easiest team in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills.
All right, well, this is an easy conversation. Josh is not going anywhere. That guy's staying there probably for the next 15 years if he doesn't get hurt. That's the quarterback in Buffalo. Buffalo's quarterback situation will not change. Next.
Okay, so next is the Miami Dolphins.
As much as everybody thinks that Miami's going to move away from Tua, I kind of disagree. I don't believe that you can tell if a quarterback's going to be good within 6 games. I just do not think that's possible. Peyton Manning led the league in interceptions his first year. I mean, if you would have, as a matter of fact, Peyton Manning set a rookie record for interceptions. If you would have thought Peyton Manning was done after year 1, you would have missed out on what is possibly the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, it's him and Tom Brady in the conversation, in my opinion. So if you would have cut Peyton Manning right away, you would have said he's useless. Ben Roethlisberger was not a great quarterback his first year. He ended up going undefeated. I think he was 14-0. If memory serves me correct, and the team was 15-1, but Ben Roethlisberger was not great. That team hid Ben Roethlisberger. So they played a game that was really built around running the ball, throwing the ball very little. Ben Roethlisberger was decent, but not as good as he ended up being. A lot of guys are like that. Drew Brees ended up getting released from his first team, or not re-signed. I'm sorry. That people forget, Drew Brees was a second-round pick by the San Diego Chargers. San Diego Chargers believed so little in Drew Brees after 3 years that they drafted Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees started in front of Phillip Rivers the very last year he was there. Then they let him go, and they kept Rivers. So they let go what was maybe one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Again, he's in that conversation, and kept Phillip Rivers, who was a decent quarterback. So I don't think they're going to – my point is I don't think that Miami is going to let Tua go. Tua stays. Who else you got?
Okay, next team we have is the New England Patriots.
Cam Newton is going to be in a broadcast booth next year. Cam Newton will not be re-signed by anybody. In my opinion, he's going to be in a broadcast booth next year. What do you think they're going to do, Lance? How does New England fix the problem? They go into the draft? They go into free agency? What's the move? Make a trade?
I believe that the New England has always been a sneaky team when it comes to deals and transactions. It's like they're like the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL. They always have some tricks up their sleeve. So I won't be surprised if they trade up and be in that like top 7 position in the first round from there, be it like a Trey Lance or even Mac Jones.
I disagree with you there from that point. I think that New England is the best at what they do, and what they do is they wait for it to come to them. They're very good at just kind of waiting things out. Like Cam Newton, they just waited it out, and they ended up getting Cam Newton. Now, to them, that was going to be okay for them. New England's not the kind of team that dives really into the market unless they see a lockdown corner or somebody like that. If it's on defense, they'll jump into the market. Offense, they just don't do it. I don't know why. I think New England. I don't disagree that New England drafts a quarterback. I think they might go after a Mac Jones or they may wait until the end of free, like towards the end, the very, very end, and then end up getting like a Foles or someone like that, or getting a Gardner Minshew out of Jacksonville. They'll get someone like that where you'll be like, oh, that's a sneaky good move. So I agree with what you're saying about sneaky. I just disagree about the timeline that you put on it. I think that they're going to get somebody, obviously, because that team has no one that can play right now. Last team in the division is the
New York Jets for the AFC East.
Jets are drafting somebody, and they're going to move away from Darnold, which I believe is probably the best move for them. There are a lot of people that believe in Sam Darnold, but I think Sam Darnold is going to move. He's going to be traded. I don't know where he's going to go, but I'm going to leave it to the sports nerd to tell me what the value is. Think about Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a above average quarterback. I think maybe an average quarterback. Hasn't really shined at all. He's got 1 year left on his deal. What do you think the value is for Sam Darnold?
The problem with Sam Darnold, he has always been a prospect ever since he entered the NFL, but apparently he hasn't really panned out ever since. Could it be a product of him not really that good, or could it be a product of not being in a good team? So that's the question that the other teams would like to answer if they would like to acquire the services of Sam Darnold, because it's imminent that he will be out, and New York will be getting a quarterback in that second overall selection. So I guess given his what he has shown lately, the highest that I would give for Sam Darnold is a second round draft choice. I wouldn't give a first round for Darnold because he hasn't proven to that level yet. But the interesting fact about him is that he's still young. There's still a lot of room for improvement in him. And given a better coach and a better overall facility around him, better group of guys around him, I guess he will be able to do a lot of wins and take a team to the playoffs.
Yeah, like we've had this discussion before. I'll just repeat it again because I think it's worth repeating. Does the quarterback make the coach? Does the coach make the quarterback? Is it something in conjunction with each other? Either way, Sam Darnold did not play very well for Adam Gase last year. So did Adam Gase and his squad not bring Sam Darnold to the promised land, not get him as good as he should have been? Or is it one of those things where you think to yourself, well, if Darnold was any good at all, he still would have won 6 games in spite of Gase. So I don't know. I think you have to go back and look at the tape. You have to really, really break it down. And I think a second round pick for Darnold would be pretty much fair. Let's go over the AFC North right now. That quarterback situation is going to be something we can just breeze through, I think. Go ahead. You fire off the teams. I'll tell you who's moving and who's not.
Okay, let's start with the easiest, Cleveland Browns.
I don't think Cleveland moves at all. I think that despite what the media likes to say, I think that Baker Mayfield is there to stay. I think that's a franchise quarterback. He'll be there for 10, 12, 15 years. Baker Mayfield leaves Cleveland when he wants to, not because he's being pushed out. He has brought an entirely different mentality to that team, and I think they're on the road to something pretty decent over there in Cleveland, as much as I hate to say it. Hey, look at that. Hans Garrett just showed up. I'm late to the party. It's okay, Hans.
Hello, Hans. Yeah, it's okay.
Or is it Hans or Hans?
Just started. I guess it's Hans. Sir.
You think it's Hans? I think it might be Hans. I don't know, but either way, Hans. Welcome to the show,
Maybe
buddy.
You'll reply. Yeah, welcome to the show.
If you guys want to leave comments, you can leave them in the comment section. You can say hello to us. You can just leave a little comment over there, or you can chime in on the conversation that we're having. We'd love to have your opinion. So we just talked about Cleveland. Who's next on your list?
Okay, let's another easy option, Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. What do you think the odds are that Baltimore moves away from the MVP from last year, or 2 years ago? Yeah, zero. If you're listening to the podcast and you don't see it, Lance is holding up a 0 in his hand right now. So I think we can skip over Baltimore. There's no move going on in Baltimore. Who else?
Okay, so Cincinnati Bengals, another easy one, I guess.
Yeah, Burrow played great last year. Unfortunately, blew that knee up. I don't know what his timeline for recovery is. He blew it up in the midseason. That's usually a 12-month recovery time. So I don't know if he's going to be back in time for the beginning of the season. If he's not, what do? I think they just hold pat and wait for him to get better. So I can't see Cincinnati moving away from Burrow. What else you got?
Yeah, offensive line is the main problem of Cincinnati. Anyway, so last team in the AFC North, your team, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I could talk Pittsburgh in length. I won't bore anybody, but there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going on in Pittsburgh right now. They met with Ben Roethlisberger last week to discuss his contract. They're just really far apart right now. At the time right now, Ben will be due this year a $41 million salary cap hit that they cannot absorb. With $180 million of projected salary cap, I cannot possibly imagine they can dedicate 40 to one player. So you have two options here. You can extend Ben and move that 40 over the course of 2 years and say, look, we'll pay you 20 a year for 2 years. Ben may accept that. He may not. He says he wants to continue to play. If he doesn't want to play for 2 more years, there's a possibility they just tear up the contract, start over again, sign him for a lower number, make it a 1-year deal. And then there's also a possibility that he just doesn't come back. I mean, there's a very good possibility that he doesn't come back. And it's a tough decision for an organization that really preaches loyalty to these guys. So not LeBron James, who's obviously not a fan of Ben, says that he wishes Ben would just retire already. And there's a huge, huge swath of Steeler fans who feel the same way. They feel that Ben has done everything that he can. Thank you for the memories, but it's time to move on. Some of that is just looking around the league and seeing these bright young quarterbacks and wishing you had one because you used to have one. You know, it's like being married, and as your wife gets older, you start to look at all these younger girls, and you forget that at one time your wife was this beautiful young girl. So the relationship with Ben Roethlisberger is tedious, to say the least. I'm going to say that he stays, and if he leaves, it certainly won't be a trade. Ben will just be, unfortunately, as the word may hurt some people, Ben Roethlisberger would just be cut, and Pittsburgh would take, I believe, a $19 or $20 million salary cap hit for this year by letting him go. Mm-hmm. So the AFC North was kind of boring. Let's be honest. That's a division where you're not going to see a tremendous amount of movement. But there are some divisions where you could see some movement, and this is one of them. Assessing the quarterback situation of the AFC South teams. Lance, where do you want to start here?
Okay, let's start with the easiest team out of the 4, the Tennessee Titans.
That is the easiest team. I think Tannehill is there. Tannehill signed a long-term contract. He fits what they want to do. If you watched him play last year, to me, I thought he played really, really well. I'm actually a fan of Tannehill. That's hard to say. I'm a fan of Tannehill. I enjoy him, so I don't think he's going to go anywhere. We got one more comment about Ben has nothing to prove anyway. He can go. Hans agrees he should go, and Rahul,
I believe so.
Rahul just not logged in and said hello. Rahul, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, aloha, Rahul. Yeah, I do agree with Ben. Yeah, doesn't have anything to prove, but if I will put a bet on it, I believe that he will be back next year on a lower salary. Right now, as it stands, Pittsburgh is $30 million over the cap. So they have a lot of reduction that needs to be done in order to go under it. And Big Ben's contract is one of them.
Well, listen, going back to Pittsburgh really quick, Pittsburgh is $30 million over the cap. That's true. I also believe that out of a 52-man roster, that I think Pittsburgh has 20 free agents. They've got some incredibly huge free agents. They can't
pretty much around
anybody.
That number.
Yeah, they can't re-sign anybody. Mike Hilton's their slot corner. He's a superstar. They're going to lose him. Bud Dupree is a superstar. They're going to lose him. Their nose tackle. They're going to lose him. Their third cornerback, Hilton. I'm sorry, no, I forget his name, but they're going to lose him as well. So that there's a lot of guys they're going to lose. They're going to lose their left tackle. Their center retired. There's a lot of people that are leaving, and they're still $30 million over the cap. That team's in trouble. But we're talking about the AFC South. We already did Tennessee. Who else is on the list?
Okay, so here's another easy option also from the AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, like the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to make a change. It's going to be a change, and you and every other draft expert have already predicted who's going to be there. So, okay, let's talk about this. What are the odds that Jacksonville trades out of that number 1 pick and doesn't take Trevor Lawrence?
0.
Absolutely 0. Not going to happen.
Stone cold 0. Not going to happen, buddy. Not going to happen.
Why would you ever trade away from a guy that people have been saying is the greatest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, he's just the guy. So yeah, I don't think there's any way Urban Meyer takes that job if he doesn't think he's going to take Lawrence. I just don't think there's any way.
I believe so. I was able to watch a Trevor Lawrence pro day in full, and he does have a zip. Yeah, he does have a zip in the ball, so he can make those throws. And what's more interesting though for Jacksonville is that once they take Trevor Lawrence, what are they going to do with Gardner Minshew? I mean, he did well enough to merit some suitors from other teams. So could he be a trade asset? Could be the backup for the Jaguars? I believe that he is more than a backup. He can help other teams in the NFL.
Look, I watched Gardner Minshew play a little bit. He was not terrible. He's going to be a great backup quarterback for a very, very long time in this league. He's a guy that could start and win you a few games if you have a decent team. Minshew, unfortunately, played on a team that just was not very talented. I mean, they look, offensively, they were actually okay. They have Chark, who's a decent wide receiver. The rookie running back was actually very good. Their offensive line's a little questionable. They don't have a lot of other weapons besides that. But that wasn't a terribly offense as far as having talent goes. So I think Minshew could play somewhere. I just don't think he's going to be a starter somewhere unless he ends up in a place like I said, like a New England where it's like a sneaky deal. They bring him in on that dirt cheap rookie contract and they make him the starter and see what he can do. Now, the rest of this division is actually really interesting. Let's move on to the rest of this division.
Okay, so for more headaches, John, the Houston Texans.
Deshaun Watson wants out in the worst way. Deshaun Watson is trying everything to get out of Houston, and Houston is saying, you cannot go. You cannot get out of this relationship. You cannot leave. We cannot let you go. But I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that they want to keep him, but they're smart enough to understand that they have one of the most valuable assets in the history of the NFL. Lance, there is no doubt in my mind he is one of the most valuable assets in the history of the NFL. You are never going to see a top 3 or 4, wherever you want to rank him, wherever you want to put him in position. You're never going to see a top 3 or 4 quarterback get traded like this again in the history of the NFL. It's never happened before, and it'll be tough to happen again. So if they pull it off, and I think they're going to, I think they're going to find somebody. I think they've been talking. I think the story got out early enough that as you see all these other quarterbacks start to say, oh, I want out too, or I want to get moved. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have Deshaun Watson or Carson Wentz? Would you rather have Deshaun Watson or would you rather have, you know what I mean? Like, who would you rather have? Who would you rather have more than Deshaun Watson? Mahomes and who else? So I think Watson's going to go. The question is, what's the value of Deshaun Watson on a trade market? What do you think Deshaun Watson's worth?
Yeah, especially now that J.J. Watt was just released by the Texans. So Deshaun Watson is more than ever frustrated that he is still part of the roster. And as for Texans, they have to listen to the offers as well because they cannot just block any offer that is put on the table because just like you mentioned, they have the gold in their hands. So if they exchange it for something else, then they might get a bigger treasure in their possession that will eventually maybe improve the franchise even further. But as far as value of Watson, I see not less than 3 first rounders for Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's hitting the peak of his career. He led the league in passing yards. He led the league in passing yards last year. So a team would trade for Deshaun Watson. I see a minimum of 3 first-round draft choices.
Yeah, look, Houston's in a terrible position because of their salary cap position, because they don't have any draft assets. They're in a terrible position. But and here's the key. They can use this Deshaun Watson trade, and they can springboard themselves back to some normalcy. They can get out of the bad cap situation. They might be able to swing themselves into the top 5 and get themselves a quarterback. You know, they do have options available to them. Imagine if they put together a deal with Miami, and Miami were to give them 2 or 3 first-round draft choices and Tua. Well, now you have Tua. You could take another quarterback in that with that top 5 pick. You can have 2 young quarterbacks, 2 young top 5 quarterbacks. In the history of the NFL, that's never happened. If somebody's had that back-to-back years, you stack these guys. You create the ultimate quarterback controversy, the ultimate quarterback competition. I take that back, not a controversy. You create the competition. The cream rises to the top. One of those guys is going to be it. They're going to make each other better, and one of those guys is going to be it. And I'm going to hire a quarterback guru to get them both up to speed. And then next year, I'm trading one of them, and I'm going to get some assets back. So I'm either going to get a first rounder next year for one of them, or a first rounder and plus the year after. I don't know. You're going to get something back for it. I think it'll be a great move for them to get Watson out of there. They have nothing there. They lost Will Fuller. They have no offense anymore. They have no defense. The thing's a damn mess. They should have never let Bill O'Brien run the damn thing. So move on, move forward. Tell me about the last team in the division.
Okay, the last team in the division is the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah. Great organization. Very New England-like the way they've been building that thing. Building it through the draft. Very, very, very targeted acquisitions out of free agency. Not huge splashes, but they get really, really good value out of the guys that they do bring in. They always have cap room. These are the guys who could make a deal. This team actually makes a tremendous amount of sense for Deshaun Watson, except for the fact that they're in the same division, and Houston would never do – well, you would think that Houston would never do that. Houston is obviously not a brilliant organization at this point. Their track record isn't exactly the best. So, but let's just say he doesn't end up there. So I don't know. Right now, they have no one on that roster, I think, who is a starting quarterback. They've already tried Jacoby Brissett. It didn't work. Jacoby Brissett's not the guy. So who is the guy in Indianapolis? I think that's the question. They were talking about Carson Wentz maybe going there. I don't know. What do you think? You think there's somebody out there that we haven't discussed in the mainstream media that could be out there?
I believe that the most imminent quarterback that might be the starter for Indianapolis next season is, like you've mentioned, Carson Wentz. It checks a lot of boxes for Indianapolis because he is a Frank Reich disciple, and he needs a fresh start. So all of those things, all of those matters. And mind you that Indianapolis actually has one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. So that benefits any quarterback that would come there. I mean, from Philadelphia to Indianapolis, that's a big jump in terms of protection. And I guess that's where Carson Wentz will be able to build his confidence back. But there's also another option for the Colts because they have the second highest cap space at $69 million. So they can look at the other free agent quarterbacks in the market. So what about Dak Prescott or maybe a Mitch Trubisky coming to Indianapolis? So those are interesting options for Indianapolis. They have a lot of options. They have a lot of paths that they can go to.
Look, if you're going to sign somebody like obviously Dak Prescott we'll talk about later when we get to Dallas, but that's a tough move to get Prescott away from Dallas. I think that if you're going to sign someone like Trubisky, it's a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year prove-it deal. Come in, show me you can be the guy. We'll pay you $10 million, and you get an opportunity to start again. But that guy did very little in Chicago to let me think that he's actually going to be a good quarterback. So let's go. We got one more team one more division in the AFC West, and this one should be pretty easy too. Assessing the quarterback situation of the AFC West teams. Tell me the 4 teams that are there. Let's decide who's staying and who's going.
Okay, let's start with the easiest.
There will be zero
Kansas City
movement
Chiefs.
in the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is going nowhere. We got a comment out there.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson should just move over to the Colts. We'll talk about that situation when we get over to that division, Russ. Hans, stick around. By the way, if I'm saying your name wrong, I apologize. I don't know if it's Hans or Hans. I'll just keep calling you Hans, and hopefully it doesn't offend you. But go ahead. So we're skipping over Kansas. Hans. It does, right? It sounds like a little more movie starish. We'll skip over KC. KC's not moving anybody. Who's next on the list?
Okay, so another easy option, Los Angeles Chargers.
Not going to do a darn thing. That quarterback last year played incredibly well. Yeah. To me, he looked like a 5-6 year pro. The way he moved around in the pocket, the way he grasped everything that was going on, I was incredibly impressed by him. Not going anywhere. Chargers stay pat.
Yeah, it's time to build around Justin Herbert though to improve that offense.
100%.
Okay, next option, AFC West, the Denver Broncos.
I think the Broncos have had their chance to kind of play around with the quarterback that they have, Locke, and I don't think that he's the guy. I think they're pretty sure he's not the guy. The one thing that the Denver Broncos do have is they have a lot of skill players around him. So if you were to bring in someone that had a little more skill, you might see a whole different offense. Now, I think there's a conversation to be had. Look, Drew Lock played really a year and a half. He had a lot of injuries. He didn't get a chance to really play enough. He had moments of, wow, he's pretty decent. Had no defense this year. Defense had a lot of injuries. Can he turn it around and become the quarterback? I don't know. I guess if you're in Denver, you probably think no. If you're a Denver fan, you think no because you haven't seen it. If you're a Denver, hang on, I got this fun comment's hilarious. If you're a Denver, I can't even talk about it. I got to show you this comment out of the comment section. Laugh out loud. If the Chiefs change their quarterback, I will sell my children and burn my wife because it's never going to happen. And then the
comment, Hans.
Hang on. And then the next comment is from not LeBron James, and it says, your wife better not be watching this show.
Indeed.
That's hilarious.
High stakes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Just go to the next team.
Okay, so just a quick comment about the Broncos. I believe that Drew Lock is not the guy for them. He has played enough not to be that guy. And the bonus for the Broncos is they have the 9th overall selection this year, this coming draft, 2021 draft. So they're picking 9th. So I guess that's a good enough position to be able to get a young prospect quarterback. But if they get a prospect quarterback, I believe that they will get a veteran, sort of a bridge quarterback to develop this young quarterback. So I guess they are looking at somebody like an Andy Dalton to spend a season or two in Denver to be that bridge quarterback to buy enough time for that prospect that they're getting at 9th.
Okay. Well, look, they do draft 9th. There is an opportunity for them. I don't know what's going to be available at 9. You've seen a lot of mock drafts. I mean, I saw a mock draft from I forgot his name at ESPN. Not Mel Kiper, but the other guy whose name is slipping my mind right now. But he had the 5 quarterbacks going in the first 5 picks. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. Wow. But you might get to 9, and those top 4 or so guys that you really value might not be there. So it's going to be interesting. That's going to be crazy to see who's going to jump up and try to get those quarterbacks. I'm still laughing over what those guys said. What's the last thing on there? Well, last team in this division.
Okay, last team in the division is the Las Vegas Raiders.
Hang on. Florence just jumped in and said a QB and a wide receiver duo for Broncos. I think the Broncos are pretty decent at wide receiver. I think they definitely need a quarterback, though.
Yeah, they do already have Jerry Jeudy. So he was drafted this season, and he did show promise for Denver.
Yeah, he was very good. Very good. And their number 1 wide receiver last year, actually, I don't know if he tore his Achilles or his ACL, but I want to say from like game 4 on, they really didn't have their number 1 guy. So they really haven't had they have a good tight end, Noah Fant. They've got the weapons. They've got 2 decent running backs. Their offensive line's okay. Like, they've got the weapons. That's what I was saying before. I do think they have the weapons to play. They don't have the quarterback. You brought up the Oakland Raiders. So the Oakland Raiders are really interesting. I just saw a report, I believe it was earlier today or maybe it was last night, that they were talking about moving their quarterback to Chicago. Now, I don't know why the media is constantly obsessed with Derek Carr being moved somewhere. That's the story all the time. That John Gruden's upset, doesn't want Carr to be there anymore. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I don't know. I've never seen a moment where they have a problem on the sideline. I've never seen Gruden speak poorly of him. So I don't know where that story continues to come from. But I think Derek Carr's an okay, decent quarterback. He played pretty well at times last year. Did he play awesome all the time? Well, not really. But I will say this about the Raiders. The Raiders don't have a lot of weapons. And that's why their tight end is their best wide receiver. Because they just don't have the players that they need. So I think it's a difficult situation in Las Vegas. Let me ask you this. If they're going to trade Derek Carr and you think that Deshaun Watson is a value of 3 first-round draft choices, Deshaun Watson is 3 first-round draft choices. And Carson Wentz, you think, oh no, who did you say was a second rounder? Oh no, you said that from the Jets is Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Darnold.
Darnold is a second rounder. Yeah. So now we've got the top of the market right now. Top of the market, Watson, 3 first-round picks. Darnold, bottom of the market for starting quarterbacks right now to trade for, second-round pick. Where do you think Derek Carr fits? Does he set a new bottom, or is he slotted above Darnold? What's your opinion?
I guess he will be slotted above Darnold. So the ceiling that I see for Derek Carr is 1 first-round draft choice, if not 2 second-rounders. I guess that's a fair deal because he's relatively young enough, so he can still function well for a few more years. So I guess 1 first-rounder, right? Yeah, early 30s.
Early 30s. So let's say he's got, I mean, look, you look at a quarterback like that. Let's say Carr's 31, 32, which is like where I think his age is. You get 4 years out of him, maybe. So is it worth it to me? I look at that. If I'm a general manager, I'm like, let me see. I can have 2 assets for 4 years, or I can give away those 2 assets, those 2 second-round picks that'll be on 4-year cheap contracts. I could trade away those 2 assets that I'll have for 4 years each on cheap contracts and trade them away for a guy that I only get to have for 4 years. That guy plays the most important position in football. I don't know, man. But he's got to be the guy. Even at 2 second-round draft choices, Derek Carr has to be the guy. And I don't know. Yeah. I guess I'll ask you, is he the guy?
Well, given his performance with the Raiders, I believe that he can do more if he has the weapons, like you've mentioned. I mean, Darren Waller is a beast at tight end, but outside of him, they don't have really deep threats in that system, in that offense. And I guess that, again, given better weapons, that he can light up the scoreboard.
Well, I guess my thing is also you're bringing him into, like, let's just say he's going to go to Chicago. What the hell does Chicago have to offer? They're going to lose their best wide receiver. Like, they don't have a lot going on there either. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to move over and we're going to talk about the NFC. But before we do that, the chat's been great today. You guys are out there. You guys are listening. For those of you listening at home, obviously later on, you're going to listen to this podcast. You don't know what's going on. We got some really funny people in the chat today. This has actually been a lot of fun. Yeah. I want you guys out there in the chat. I'm going to play a quick 30-second video. I want you guys to watch the video, and I want you to tell me what you think of the video. This is going to be our video that we're running starting today as a commercial on YouTube. So I'm going to play it, and then I want you guys to give me your comments in the chat. Before I do that, we have one more comment over here from somebody saying, I think the Raiders can give Carr another year and good wide receivers and two more running backs. Well, this guy wants a lot. All right. Let me play this commercial really quick. I want you guys to tell me what you think of it when I come back out of the chat. Hey guys, if you like sports and you're a fan of Michael Franzese, the most famous mob boss on YouTube, then you're going to love what we have planned. In a once-in-a-lifetime event, join us in the $2 Sports Club for an uncensored interview with the Mafia Don himself, where you get to ask the questions. That's right, any question you want. So right now you're probably thinking, what the heck is the $2 Sports Club? Well, the $2 Sports Club is the hottest thing on the internet right now, with uncut live interviews from some of your favorite stars of sports and culture, articles and videos from some of the hottest up-and-coming writers in sports, and special deals offered to our members that they can't get anywhere else. Now, if you love sports and you love to be in the know, the $2 Sports Club is the place to be. And today, we've got some breaking news. Along with all the amazing content that I just talked about, the $2 Sports Club just signed me, the sports trader, to provide exclusive seminars on predictive sports analytics. I normally charge up to $5,000 for one of my talks, but if you join the $2 Sports Club today, you get those seminars for free, along with all the other great content that I was talking about, including that once-in-a-lifetime interview with Michael Franzese. And that's right, it's only $2. Join today by clicking the link and becoming a charter member today. What are you waiting for? Click the link. All right, we're back. That was a snappy little commercial that we put together. Ben is our video editor. I think he did a great job with that. He and Lovely teamed up with some great ideas, made a really cool video. We have one comment in the chat that says that's a very cool commercial. Well, I'm glad you like that, Mr. Cuevas. That's awesome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. Now, we're back. If you guys want to leave some comments about the commercial, that would be great. We're also going to switch over to the NFC. If you just joined the program, today we are talking about quarterbacks and how they've been moving around to different areas. And that's what's really, really interesting, because all these quarterbacks, there's going to be so much quarterback movement this year that it's going to be incredible. Not LeBron James said that was interesting. I'm glad you like that. Not LeBron James. Tomorrow I'm going to be like, oh, we had a lot of people who watched the show yesterday. Oh, really? Who was watching? Oh, not LeBron James. When you say not, but LeBron James is watching. Yeah. Anyway, so we're talking about quarterbacks that are moving around. We already covered the AFC. Now we're going to move over to the NFC. Let's start with the NFC East. I think there's going to be a lot of movement in this division. Let's go over each team.
Okay. Let's start with who I think is the easiest team out of the 4, the New York Giants.
Listen, I think that the New York Giants are committed to Daniel Jones one more year. And I think that if he doesn't show a tremendous amount of improvement this year, that it's going to be very, 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 very difficult for the Giants to say we want to continue to stay with you. Now, in Jones's defense, New York just doesn't have a lot of weapons, and the weapons they do have are constantly hurt. So, they have a guy that could be the best running back in all of football, but I think he was hurt game 1. I think he played, I want to say they played Pittsburgh in the opener, and he got hurt in the opener, and then he never came back. So, you're talking about Saquon Barkley. I mean, you lose Saquon Barkley, that guy was going to be half your offense. So you lost half your offense. They signed a couple free agent wide receivers. Both were hurt. It's a team that's just been in turmoil as far as trying to find the right superstars that they can pair up with a quarterback, trying to keep him protected, trying to find somebody he can hand the ball off to. Like, it was, if you're a Giants fan, last year was a complete nightmare, but I think they stay with Daniel Jones. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess Daniel Jones got a pass last year because the pieces around him were not playing long enough for him to be at full potential. So he gets another audition next year, and if he really doesn't do anything with a complete roster, then that's the time that the Giants will seriously think what to do with him. Be it being a backup or draft another quarterback or get another one.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, let's see. Someone just said Barkley. That was the comment. Barkley, or maybe he was commenting before, but I missed it. Go ahead. Who's next in the division?
Okay, next in the division, Philadelphia Eagles.
Oof. So who are we saying the starter is? Are we saying the starter is Jalen Hurts? Is he going to leave, or do you want to talk about all of it?
I believe that the starter for the Philadelphia Eagles next season will be Jalen Hurts. I firmly believe that Carson Wentz will be on the way out.
Okay, so you think Carson Wentz is going to go? Yeah. So here's my issue with Carson Wentz leaving. The initial reports that they tried to. So it's always interesting to me what they try to create and what's real. So if you want to see what actually happens and how they use Twitter and the certain people in the media to manipulate what's going on, Carson Wentz was announced that he was going to be traded. And all of a sudden they come out and they're like, oh, there's so much interest in Carson Wentz. Somebody already offered 2 first-rounders. Well, let me tell you something. If somebody offered 2 first-rounders for your backup quarterback who was hard to deal with last year, who was hard to coach, who's regressed at the level that Carson Wentz is, who's got the contract that's got the contract that Carson Wentz has, you're going to take 2 first-rounders.
Yes.
Lance, I'm going to tell you right now, nobody offered 2 first-rounders. Nobody offered that. And the other problem with Carson Wentz, which is what Florence is saying in the chat, Wentz is injury prone. That's right. Wentz is 100% injury prone. That is not a guy that you want to give all that. Well, listen, I don't think there's a value of 2 first-rounders. He's going to move. He's going to go somewhere. Let me ask you this. How does he go? What's the method of transportation? And what do they get back?
Okay, I believe so. If we peg the Deshaun Watson with 3 first-rounders, so it's really odd to see that Carson Wentz is just valued 1 less first-rounder, given with all he did. Yeah, given with all he did last season, he had the highest number of picks last season, and his confidence was just shot with everything that he has done for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I guess it will happen via trade, the way his mode of transportation going out, and I would put them in the same range as Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold had no benefit of having a good team. Carson Wentz had the better team. It's just that he did not perform very well. So I guess you can put them at the same range. So I wouldn't give up more than a second rounder for Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. Listen, if you look at what they just did with Jared Goff was in a similar position. The difference between Wentz and Goff is, to me, is so minuscule. Now, Wentz had that really good year where he was almost the MVP of the league. But Wentz has such an injury history, and both he and Goff were given contracts when they didn't need to be given contracts. Their rookie contracts weren't even up yet. There was no reason to renegotiate and pay these guys all this money. They both got paid too early, and this is a cautionary tale moving forward that people should know not to do that. Like, teams have to learn from these mistakes and not do it anymore. Now, I'll also say this. If you're looking at when you set up your trade value, you said Deshaun Watson was worth 3 first-rounders. You said that Derek Carr was worth 1 first-rounder. You said that who was worth No, was Derek Carr worth 2 second rounders?
Yeah, either 1 first round or 2 second rounders.
Okay, right. Sam Darnold was worth a second rounder. Now you're saying Carson Wentz is worth only 1 second rounder.
Yeah.
So Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold have the same value in your mind. It all comes down to taste. If you like Wentz's skill set, if you like Darnold's skill set, either way, both are second rounders.
Yeah, I agree because
okay.
You don't you haven't gotten much assessment of Sam Darnold because he has placed in a bad situation out front as compared to Wentz, wherein he had all the weapons around him for that one season, and then for the subsequent season, but apparently he regressed. So I guess that's the same range of draft trades for both of them.
Okay. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just keeping score for the people at home so people understand. So Deshaun Watson is 3 draft choices, 3 number ones. Derek Carr is either a first rounder or 2 seconds. Both Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz, you say, are second round draft choices if you want to trade.
Yep.
Somebody agrees with you. Florence agrees with you. Second rounder is fair enough for Wentz. 2 second rounders. Okay, I don't know if he wants 1 or 2 there, but anyway, who's next in the division?
Okay, next in the division, the Dallas Cowboys.
So if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you have a very interesting situation in front of you. You have Dak Prescott, who could be, I'm not saying he is, but he could be a top 5 quarterback. In the past, he's kind of shown statistics like that, where he could be that top 5 kind of guy. So you could think that that's your guy. Now, there's another situation that can come up here. Dallas is within striking range of getting inside that top 5 or 6 to get one of those top quarterbacks. So if you really like one of those quarterbacks, you can say to yourself, okay, we'll take the downgrade, but we'll get the upgrade in the fact that over the next 5 years, we don't have to pay Dak Prescott kind of money. And if we let Dak Prescott go, next year we'll get a compensatory pick back for him.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and here's the other thing, and this is where you're going to come in, or the other thing is they could sign and trade him. So they could put Dak on a franchise tag and then trade him. Dak Prescott coming off of a broken, whatever the hell was wrong with him. He was absolutely crushed, whatever was wrong with his leg. I don't know if it was an ankle, leg, whatever. Snapped in half. Dak Prescott coming off of an injury like that, where do you think his value is if he was put under a franchise tag and was traded? What do you think the value of the trade is?
Well, the problem with the franchise tag is that you have less suitors because that's around $37 million for 1 year, and there's not a lot of teams with that much salary cap going into the season. But if we have Deshaun Watson with 3 first rounders,
but let's assume for the sake of argument, really quick, that you could franchise him, you could trade him, and then the other team could renegotiate that, and this would all be done in advance. Somebody will go in and renegotiate and say, look, you're getting $37 million, we can only pay you blah blah blah. But he is asking for a lot of money. He is asking for a lot of money and a short contract. That's the thing you have to remember about Dak. Dak does not want to be on a 5-year contract. Dak wants a 3-year contract because he wants to go back into the market again, and that's been the problem in Dallas. That's why he has not signed the contract with them. So with all this in mind, what is the value of Dak Prescott?
I believe it's a fair value for Dak Prescott for any team to give up 1 first rounder and 1 second rounder.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair deal because you still got a first rounder and then you get a number 2 from that team, preferably from the same draft because as we know, he just came off injury and we don't know yet how he's going to perform after the surgery. Will he be the promising Dak Prescott, or will he be a shell of his old self?
So because of all of these factors, because of the contract and the difficulties in the contract, because he only wants a short-term contract, and because of the injury, you're going to say a first rounder and a second rounder, preferably in the same draft. So that's his value.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Agree.
Who else is in the division?
Okay. Last in the division, the Washington football team.
Okay. So the Washington football team did a very interesting thing this year, and I was a little bit shocked by this. So they started off the year with I forgot his name now. He just signed with Pittsburgh, actually. He was their first round drafter. Yeah, Dwayne Haskins Dwayne Haskins was their starter. If I'm correct here, Dwayne Haskins was their starter. Their second on the depth chart was the kid they brought over from the Carolina Panthers, and then third on the depth chart was Alex Smith. So they had those three guys were number 1, number 2, number 3. All of them are hurt, and they've got to play Heineke, Taylor Heineke.
Yeah,
They've
Taylor
got to play
Heineke.
Heineke. Yeah, they've got to play Heineke. Heineke plays lights out in the divisional round of the playoffs, and they just signed Heineke to a contract, one that is not a starter's contract, but not a cheap one either. So this guy got himself, I believe, a $4 million, $5 million contract every year. So is Washington thinking to themselves, we've got a cheap starter for the next few years. We'll give this guy a shot for the next few years. We've got a cheap starter. Or is he now a really expensive, did he earn himself an expensive backup? Like what's happening there? What do you think is going on in Washington?
I believe Washington starting quarterback will be Alex Smith. He declared that he wants to come back in 2021, but the main consideration for the Washington football team is that he will take a big cap hit if he does return. But the nature of Heineke's contract is just for 2 years for around $9 million in total. So you're saying to Heineke that if ever something happens to Alex Smith, you'll be the guy. But they are not, mind you, that they're not really ready to make that commitment yet, because compared to other quarterbacks in the NFL, that's still a cap-friendly deal, $9 million for 2 years. So it's like,
wait a minute, wait. It's not a cap-friendly deal when you look at the fact that he's your second. I guess he's your backup quarterback. Is he your backup? He's your number 1 backup. What is that? What is that number valued at? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that what did Dallas sign the redhead for? I'm trying to think of what they signed it for. I want to say his contract was like $6 million over 2 years, and he's a proven starter in the NFL. So when you look at the value of what he got in Dallas, are you looking it up right now?
1 year, $3 million.
Oh, he only got 1 year, 3. Okay. There wasn't a second year option for 3 more, a team option. Okay, so it was only $3 million. So whatever it was, Andy Dalton was only $3 million. So you give Andy Dalton $3 million, who has a proven track record. This guy played 1 game, and you just gave him $4.5 million a year. Like, where does that number come from? What does that signify? Does that signify he's going to get a chance to be the starter, or does it signify that, like, we didn't know what else to do, so we just paid you a bunch of money because we think you might be okay? Like, he wasn't on the roster to start the year.
Yeah, it was like a part-time player and was completing his engineering degree before all of this madness happened to him. But let's not forget also, he is in Washington, and Washington is prone to overpaying players. We know Dan Snyder has always been at fault with that. So if you're asking me where did that value come from, well, maybe they just created it by themselves, because it has been an issue with the Washington football team for so long. They overpay players.
I guess I'm still completely lost by the idea of it. I just don't even know what to make of it. As soon as I heard it, I was like, well, that's such an odd number. Like, who were you competing? Like, who were you bidding against? Like, who was the guy that you were bidding against to you know what I mean? Like, who else was after this guy? You don't have to pay that kind of money. It's just an odd thing for me. I don't know. Anyway, Washington is one of those teams I don't really understand. So I guess that's one of those things we'll have to see how it plays out. Let's move on to a different division right now, because we have 3 more divisions to cover before this is done. I want to remind everybody out there, though, really quick, our show today is sponsored by the $2 Sports Club. If you don't know what the $2 Sports Club is, a lot of people are thinking, what the hell is the $2 Sports Club? The $2 Sports Club is one of the coolest things going on right now. You can go over to whatsonsports.com. It's a big, huge graphic that says, what the hell is the $2 Sports Club? And it'll explain it to you. I'll break it down really quick. For $2, you'll get some of the best content available on the web, in the entire interweb right now, sports related, obviously, but you're also going to get some other cool stuff. We'll keep you on our mailing list, which means we'll send you out some of the best deals that we find. Like, we have some amazing watches and some really cool stuff at discounts you can't find anywhere else. That's really cool. We're also going to do special interviews with a guy by the name of Michael Franzese. Is our very first interview this month for the inauguration of the $2 Sports Club. Michael Franzese used to be a mafia boss. He was involved in the in sports, gambling, and actually paying players to shave points. It's going to be a super interesting conversation. And the best part about the conversation is that the people in the $2 Sports Club will be able to ask Michael and any of our other guests questions. So it's a very interactive thing that we're trying to create there. And we'd like to invite all of you to be a part of the $2 Sports Club. Go over to whatsonsports.com today and sign up. Now, we're talking about the NFC North. And that's a division that is either standing pat or in complete disarray with each team. Let's go over them one by one. NFC North, let's go.
Okay, the easiest one of them all, the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers goes nowhere. He'll stay there for sure. I think Aaron Rodgers has 2 more years in Green Bay, and I think at that point they'll try to move on to Jordan Love. I think they're going to try to follow the exact same pattern that Aaron Rodgers had, which correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he sat for 3 years and then he came out and played, and he was obviously a really, really good quarterback at that point. So that's the recipe that Green Bay thinks works, and that's the recipe that they're going to use moving forward. Who's next?
Yeah. It's funny, though, that some teams ask for the availability of Rodgers in the offseason, early in the offseason.
Well, of course, people are going to ask because they're going to say, well, look, they've got Jordan Love. They really want to play this guy, the new toy. They're going to ask. But if you trade away the MVP of the league, there's something wrong with you. There's something incredibly wrong with you. That offense was unstoppable at some points last year. So I don't think I get rid of Aaron Rodgers ever. I think he's a guy that sticks around for a long time. So Aaron Rodgers stays. Who else is out there?
Okay, so let's go to the Minnesota Vikings.
Kirk Cousins is on a contract that just I don't think is movable. It's completely guaranteed. Again, another one of those really dumb contracts that was put out there. Not because I think Kirk Cousins is a bad player. I think he's a pretty good player, actually. Kirk Cousins is a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion. I have a problem with the fact that it's a completely guaranteed contract and you're married to the guy forever. So even if you see that there is an upgrade, or if you have an opportunity to make an upgrade, you just can't make one. It's not financially possible for you. It's even less financially possible that you're going to get somebody in a year like this year where everybody's suffering under the same type of cap restrictions. Everybody's going to suffer through that. No one's going to have the space to actually bring a guy like that in. So he's not going anywhere. Who's next?
Yeah. Okay, next team.
Okay.
Detroit Lions.
This is where we can start to have the discussion. The Detroit Lions make a huge move. They trade away Matthew Stafford. They bring in Jared Goff, who they're saying is their guy. They believe he's their guy. And they've also got an extra first rounder next year and an extra first rounder the year after. So in the next 2 years coming up, not this year, the next 2 years coming up, they've got 2 first round draft choices in each league and in each draft year. I believe that Jared Goff is their guy. I believe that they're going to stay with Jared Goff, and they think that they made a lateral movement and picked up 2 first rounders. What do you think?
Yeah, for all the discussion of them potentially getting a young quarterback, at least Jared Goff has proven something in the NFL. I mean, he's still a 2-time Pro Bowler, and he's not really one of the lesser quarterbacks. It just so happened that he has a preferred style of offense. He's better off throwing off play action as compared to a Matt Stafford who can just wing it after a 3 or 5 step drop. So if Detroit will be able to improve the pieces around him and cater the offense to Jared Goff's strengths, they can vastly improve in the coming seasons.
Well, the Detroit's got a backfield that's actually pretty talented, and they've got a coach who's going to run the ball. Like, that's going to be a smash mouth team. That's going to be the attitude there. So if play action is what he likes, play action is what he's going to get. I think he goes nowhere. I think Detroit stands pat. Who else you got?
Okay, next team is Chicago Bears.
Okay, shit show. That how can such a storied franchise? I mean, it's a legendary franchise in a legendary city in what's one of the biggest cities in the world. Chicago is amazing. You can go there, have the best food, meet the best people. I mean, really just an awesome experience. If you ever get a chance to go to Chicago, you should go. It is everything that America is supposed to be, all jammed into one area. I mean, it's got white people, black people, Hispanic people. It's got the Irish. It's got the Italians. It's got Asian people. It's got everything inside this little area. Everybody pretty much gets along, and they've got great sports. Like I said, great food. They've got great bars. But for some reason, the Bears cannot get a franchise quarterback. How can one team go 30 years and never have a franchise quarterback? I mean, it's unbelievable. Jim McMahon was the closest thing they ever had to a franchise quarterback, and I believe he played in like 1986. So I don't get it. I don't understand what they're doing wrong there. It's not like the same people have been the general manager for the last 30 years and fucking it up, but somebody's doing it. And if I'm a Chicago Bear fan, I've had it. I'm pissed. So far in 30 years, you gave me Jim McMahon and Grossman, who used to be the quarterback for Florida. I mean, Grossman. There's just like where is the talent at? It's not like we haven't drafted in the top 10 every once in a while. It's not like we haven't been a terrible team where we couldn't get a quarterback. It's not like we can't trade. It's not like somebody else doesn't want to come to a huge market, a market that made Michael Jordan what he was because the Chicago fan base is so strong and so fervent. It's not like somebody won't come there and say, hey, that's a place for me. I don't get it. So, yeah, they're going to get a quarterback. I'll leave it up to you. How are they going to get the guy?
I guess they can go via trade. I mean, they might be shipping Mitchell Trubisky, but they can play the card wherein he did well towards the tail end of the regular season. And they can play that card up. But I guess for Chicago, with your rant there, could it be that they are a franchise that is stuck in the past because, they've always been known as a defensive team, run the ball kind of team. And it seems like they have this fault of keeping that identity when the time has passed by them. They have to be better at most important position.
Well, hang on. So, yeah, I get that. But if you watch Chicago last year, it's all spread offense. So it's not like they're not trying to spread people out. You're running 4 wide receivers and you're putting your halfback in the slot. There's no one in the backfield. Like, what are you doing? Like, if you're going to run that kind of offense, you need that kind of quarterback. You need a guy that can move the ball like that. And now I get it. They took a shot at Trubisky. It didn't work out. That happens. First round draft choices don't always make it. Just because everybody this year is going on and on saying there's going to be 4 or 5 guys in the top 12 doesn't mean that any of them are going to be any good. Maybe it means that one of them is going to be good. Maybe it means that none of the other ones are going to be good, and like only Mac Jones is going to be good, and he'll probably be the last guy in the first round to go. So we don't know the answer. Just like when Chicago traded up to get Trubisky and they passed on a couple guys named Watson and Mahomes, they didn't know. Now, I'm not sure anybody knew. Now, you could say Philadelphia knew because they traded up to get Mahomes, and the Texans obviously knew because they took Watson. But would they have taken Trubisky if he was there? We don't know. Like, we don't know what would have happened. I'm a draftnik. I was shocked they took Trubisky. I was blown away that Chicago took Trubisky. When they took him, I thought, what? You just traded up for Trubisky? This guy was like the 25th or 26th person on like most draft boards. Yeah. Maybe he wasn't considered to be a first round guy by a lot of people. And you traded up, I think, at number 4 and paid a lot to get him. So I don't know, Lance. I'm lost by the whole thing. I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. And they should run the ball. Maybe they should be what you're saying. Maybe they should be the Ravens. Maybe they, but they're not. So I just disagree with you on what I disagree with you on what the Bears think they are. I don't think the Bears know what the fuck they are, to be quite honest with you. Sorry. I have a lot of friends who are Chicago fans. I apologize. I just, you're just wondering what the hell's going on most of the time there. Hey, you know what? I think that just talking about them made me upset. Let's go to a different division. Let's move on to a different division. Let's assess the quarterback situation of the NFC South. Interesting division.
Interesting division indeed. So let's start with the easiest one, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
What do you think?
What are the chances that Tom Brady moves out?
Yeah.
0.
We're back to
Cold-blooded 0.
Cold-blooded 0. Okay, no need to talk about Tampa anymore. What's the next team on the list?
Okay, next team on the list, New Orleans Saints.
Ooh, interesting. Sean Payton says that the next quarterback is on this roster right now. Now, here's something that's kind of sneaky. A lot of people are saying Jameis Winston might be the guy. Now, I don't think Winston's the guy, and here's the reason why. Jameis Winston is not signed there. Jameis Winston could find himself as the starter for somebody this year somewhere. I mean, he's a number 1 overall pick before. obviously had interception problems, but the guy's got talent. He's definitely got arm talent. So Jameis Winston might be that sneaky. You talked before about somebody like the Colts being sneaky and the Patriots being sneaky. That might be the sneaky guy who ends up being a starting quarterback for one of those two franchises, especially Indianapolis. He could do worse than go to Indianapolis, a team that's got a great defense, a team that's got the opportunity to actually run the ball because they have an offensive line and a stable of running backs. He could do a lot worse than to go there. So, look, if I'm looking at New Orleans, I think New Orleans stays pat with who they have, and I believe the only quarterback they have I believe the only quarterback they have under contract is actually their backup tight end last year. But what do you think? Is New Orleans going to make a move, or are they going to stay with the next Steve Young?
Okay, so first things first. Drew Brees during his quote unquote last game, probably, he mentioned to Jameis Winston that this is your team now, and I guess what's taking it so long for him to get signed is, there is this quick bit of video wherein he was saying to Jameis in like a teary-eyed fashion, "It's your team now," something like that. So I guess the reason why the Winston's contract is not yet signed is because the Saints have a lot to process when it comes to slashing their salary cap, because they have the worst salary cap adjustment to be made. They are $69 million over the cap. So that's a lot of decisions to be made before.
They're a mess. And Lance, real quick, I believe they signed Taysom Hill last year for $10 million a year or something.
Yeah, they did.
So Hill's a huge, he was supposed to be their quarterback. That's why they signed him to that big contract.
Yeah. So you have Hill signed, but I guess they also signed Winston and then put them in a competition to find your quarterback. The good thing about New Orleans, I believe that they would take a slide next season, but not much of a slide, because they still have a good roster around whoever the quarterback is. If it's Taysom Hill, then you have a spread option or like a run pass option kind of system that you can unleash Alvin Kamara for all you want to. And if they have a Jameis Winston, then they can use his rocket arm to go to the likes of their wide receivers. So they would take a hit. They would not win the same number of games that they did this season, but I guess that they will still be a fringe playoff team in 2021.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If I think about the Saints, I think about their cap situation. I think about Drew Brees is going to leave. I think about signing Taysom Hill. That was supposed to be your next guy up. I don't think you can afford to bring back Winston unless Winston comes back on a cheap contract. If Winston comes back cheap like he played last year, I think that there's some opportunity there. But I got to be honest, I like to see Winston moving on to greener pastures. There are teams out there that are going to need a quarterback. Chicago, Indianapolis. There are teams that just don't have anybody, and need somebody badly. And I think Winston might fill the gap for somebody out there. I have this feeling that someone's going to give that guy one more chance. I just don't know why. I mean, I know why. Pedigree. If you're drafted, like you put Jameis Winston on a free agent market, you put Gardner Minshew on a free agent market, and you compare them side by side, and you're like, well, these guys have pretty similar stats. Jameis Winston gets a job every damn time because pedigree. He was a first-round draft choice, number 1 overall, highly touted prospect. Gardner Minshew was an accident. So when you look at it that way, I think he's got a better chance of actually getting a job. So let's move on to a different team.
Okay, so next team on the NFC South, Carolina Panthers.
Oof. Well, the story everywhere is that they're not happy with Teddy Bridgewater. But they just signed Teddy Bridgewater to, I believe, was 3 year, $60 million deal. I don't know how much that's guaranteed. I don't know what the cap hit is when he leaves. But Teddy Bridgewater was okay last year. First year in the system. First year really starting in, I think, 5 years. So, Bridgewater to me deserves a few years to actually develop. I look at some of these teams and I think to myself, if you think about your job and any job you have out there, if you do it 16 times, are you an expert at it? Probably not. But you only get to play 16 games every year in the NFL. I mean, that's how fickle the league is. So if you haven't figured it out after doing it 5 times, they think you're a bust. So it's just there's no room for anybody to have a year or two and get better and grow with the team and become that guy. People want it like right now. I paid you the money. Do it right now. Be the best in the world. Be a top 5 quarterback. If you watch Carolina last year, I thought Bridgewater played pretty well sometimes. What do you think Carolina's going to do, though, with the whole Teddy Bridgewater situation? Do they jump in the draft again? Do they create a competition between Bridgewater and a first-round guy? Like, what's the story here?
So they signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year, $63 million contract, $33 million of which is guaranteed, plus a $15 million signing bonus. So with that big of an investment, I believe that the Panthers should give Teddy Bridgewater another chance. I mean, why the hell did you sign a quarterback for if you won't give him a second chance? And just like what you've mentioned, he did pretty well with what he had. And what he had was not too much.
Not too much.
So he doesn't have anyone around him that can really stretch the field or even give him more big plays.
Well,
so,
look, I compare his situation to exactly what happened in New York. You don't have Christian McCaffrey, who was 64% of your offense the year before. Indeed. So you have an offense that really runs around this one guy, and you lose that one guy that's this multi-dimensional superstar guy, and I think that you're not going to have a great offense because of that. And by the way, I want to say one more thing, Lance. I don't know if you noticed, but I can never remember anybody's name. I'm terrible at names, but I can always tell you what their contract is. I'm always pretty darn close to their contract. It's really weird that I can remember what they get paid, but I can never remember their names. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you're a numbers guy, I guess so. You're the sports trader. That's why you remember numbers very well.
Yeah. I just wanted to point it out. Every time I talk about somebody's contract, I'm like, oh, I got that one right. Oh, I got that one right. I know what everybody gets paid per year. I have no idea why, but I just, it's one of those weird things that stick in my head. So what do you think, Bridgewater stays, Bridgewater goes? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, Bridgewater stays, but I guess with the number 6 pick in the 2021 NFL draft, the Carolina Panthers will draft a young quarterback if there is someone available, just to be able to create a competition and to have an insurance policy as well, because they don't have that good backup quarterback for Bridgewater. Because if time comes that Bridgewater doesn't perform to expectations, then they have somebody who can come out of the bullpen and throw immediately.
Well, look, if you look at it from a team standpoint, if you're a team that has patience and you could draft a young guy next year, you let Teddy Bridgewater start. Bridgewater, you're praying he has a great year, because what that does is it gives you a chip to play with. So the year after you want your rookie quarterback to play. He didn't play at all the year before. Bridgewater was great. And guess what? You've still got Teddy Bridgewater's rights for one more year, which means that you can trade him. So now you can trade Teddy Bridgewater and maybe get back some draft capital, a swap for another player. I think that's a great move for Carolina. Now that you talked it out with me, I like it. Who else is in that division?
Okay, last team in the division, the Atlanta Falcons.
Unfortunately, right now, I think the Atlanta Falcons are screwed. They're in a bad situation with Matt Ryan. You can't move him. Nobody wants him. Not because he's a bad quarterback, but because he's closer to 40 than he is to 30. He's well past his prime, and he's got an enormous contract, and which I'm not even sure Atlanta can even absorb this year, but they have to figure it out. So I don't think Atlanta brings in somebody else to take over for Ryan. I think they may bring in somebody else to kind of be that guy next, but I don't think Matt Ryan goes anywhere. You think somebody's gonna want him? You think he's got a place to go?
Well, apparently, the owner himself, Arthur Blank, put up Matt Ryan and even Julio Jones, declared them as tradable. But as we all know, up until now, no suitors whatsoever. So the thing about Matt Ryan's contract, it's a 5-year, $150 million contract. So he still has
right?
150.
150. Yeah, that's what I thought.
150. So that's a lot of dollars, and he still has 3 years left in his contract, including the 2021 season. So whoever trades for him, he is an aging asset. He is steady, but he's not as exceptional as well. Not like a Patrick Mahomes or even a better quarterback. So his best days are behind him. So nobody would like to get that investment to tie themselves of that crippling salary.
So really quick.
So Atlanta will stay for. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, I think that people are learning something now. This quarterback market is putting everybody in this bad situation. Like you just described a terrible situation in Atlanta. But I think Atlanta felt like they had no choice but to keep their franchise quarterback and to pay him $30 million a year over the next 5 years. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't these bad spots.
Yeah, it is a bad spot. And I guess they were put in a situation wherein, do we pay the guy for what he has done, or what will he be able to do?
Yeah.
So I guess that's where the dilemma came in. And that's why they signed Matt Ryan for more than what he deserves right now. So for the Atlanta Falcons at number 4, given that Matt Ryan has not much years left, perhaps he only has 3 years left in his NFL career, they should start looking or starting the process of finding his replacement, most likely by the draft, because at number 4, they would still get a viable young talent.
Yeah, look, I think you have to decide at some point when will we have this opportunity again? When you're a franchise drafting in the top 5, when will we have this opportunity again? Well, hopefully not soon. If you're a franchise thinking, oh, we'll be here every year, no need to worry about it, you probably shouldn't be the guy in charge. So yeah, look, I could see that being a thing where they pick the guy this year. Let him sit for a year behind Matt Ryan, who's a good leader, who's a really smart player, who's not a terrible quarterback right now. Let him sit for a year. Let him learn a little bit from Matt Ryan. Maybe you pick the guy. But either way, you give the guy a year to learn under Matt Ryan. I like that. We have one last division to talk about, and I think this division's might be the easiest division that we've talked about so far. This and the AFC. I'm sorry, the AFC North I thought was pretty easy, but let's assess the quarterback situation in the NFC West. What do you think?
Okay, let's start with the easiest, the Los Angeles Rams.
Well, they just gave away the world for Matthew Stafford, so I don't think Matthew Stafford's going anywhere. He's staying right there.
Indeed. No chances of him getting elsewhere. So next on the list, another easy one, the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, man, look at Kyler Murray's an exciting player. Kyler Murray's like, I'm not going to lie. I would have 2 games on every Sunday, and I would focus on the Steelers a little bit, and then when the game that was over, I would flip around to different games and everything. But when Arizona was on, that was must-watch TV for me. I watched probably in full at least 7 Arizona games this year, where I was like, I couldn't take my eyes off this kid. He's just, you don't know what's going to happen next. He's magical back there. And he's just, he throws from some of the most awkward positions, and he's got a lot of Patrick Mahomes in him, but he's a quicker guy. He's a guy that can just take off. He's got to be scary as hell for offenses. And as he's learning more, going into year 3 in the same system, and they're going to keep adding weapons, that's a team that's going to be scary as hell. He's not going anywhere, obviously. I just wanted to tell you that I thought Kyler Murray was awesome.
Yeah, he's staying put. And imagine if they will have an offseason with him and DeAndre Hopkins learning the ropes together, exactly. And they could be deadly.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay, next on the list. Yeah. Next on the list for the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks.
Russell Wilson wants out. I fucking hate this guy.
What do you know? He wants out.
If Russell Wilson leaves, he's a $40 million cap hit. Let's imagine for just a second, Lance. Let's just pretend the game. Let's play along. And let's say the Seahawks say, you know what? We don't need this kind of the BS. Russell says, I can't play here. There's an impasse that pops up, and they're going to trade Russell Wilson. They're going to eat the $40 million salary cap. I don't know why they would do that, but let's imagine that they would. What do you think the value of Russell Wilson is? Now, for those people out there that are listening, Lance has been valuing as we go along. So far, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Lance's value and each one of these things is not just due to quarterback talent, but due to quarterback circumstances. So Deshaun Watson is 3 first-round draft choices, minimum. These are all minimum.
Yeah.
The floor, Deshaun Watson, 3 first-rounders. Dak Prescott, if he were to be signed and traded, this is the situation. Signed and traded is a first and a second rounder.
Yes.
Carson Wentz is 1 second rounder. Sam Darnold is 1 second rounder. And Derek Carr, just the way he is either a first rounder or 2 second rounders. I just wanted to catch up anybody who might be watching this in a clip on YouTube or didn't listen to the whole show. That's your value so far. So we're talking about Russell Wilson. What is the value for Russell Wilson on the trade market today, right now?
Okay, so given that Russell Wilson is already advanced in age, so you don't know how much years you can get out of Russell Wilson. He
And he's
still is a
taking a lot of
viable
hits.
option, taking
And
a
he's
lot
taking
of
a lot
hits.
of hits.
Yeah, he is the most sacked quarterback since 2017, and he had like 400 hits this
Yeah.
season. So, given that he has a lot of hits and he's not getting any younger, um, the ceiling. So this is the ceiling that I would give up for a Russell Wilson is one first rounder and two second rounders. Not necessarily in the same draft. So that's the ceiling that I can see for Russell Wilson.
That's the ceiling. That's not even the
Yeah,
floor. That's the
that's the
most you would
ceiling.
give up.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
wow.
ceiling.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think Russell Wilson does himself any favors by coming out and saying these things publicly. I think if the idea was to get traded away, I think one of the worst things that you did for yourself was that you lowered your own value. You literally came out and said, I'm a damaged asset. I'm tired of getting beat up here. So if I'm going to trade for you, that's one of the first things I think about. Well, are you hurt? Why are you complaining like this? Are you starting to feel the pains? You don't want to take the hits anymore? Because once a quarterback decides he doesn't want to be hit anymore, he's a different quarterback. Like, he doesn't play the way he used to play. There's a physicality that's involved in football. And once you decide you no longer want to be part of that physicality, there's some real problems that could be happening. So, I don't think Russell Wilson's going to go anywhere at all. I think he stays there. If he goes, your evaluation is interesting, but I don't know. So there's one last team that we have not talked about. 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl. Last year, they were awful. San Francisco 49ers.
San Francisco 49ers.
So there's a lot of what ifs. A lot of people saying Kyle Shanahan really likes this guy. Kyle Shanahan's trying to get this guy. Kyle Shanahan's trying to bring in Deshaun Watson. Kyle Shanahan doesn't like the quarterback that he has. Well, that's really where the big problem is. Guy's hurt all the time. What do you think? Is there a market there for the quarterback in San Francisco?
Well, interestingly, I believe they just signed Josh Rosen to like a minimum contract. So
Really?
at least, they have that some sort of insurance policy that somebody will suit up, whoever it is. So that's the problem with the 49ers. It's like a revolving door of quarterbacks. During last season, it was Garoppolo, it was Beathard. So they didn't really get the consistency. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And I believe that the 49ers are already looking into moving out of Jimmy Garoppolo. It's just that they couldn't figure out how to do it because they would rather start with a younger quarterback and run the reins with him. And Garoppolo, I believe, has played his best days for San Francisco and would be better off elsewhere.
Okay, so let's imagine that Jimmy Garoppolo, let's imagine that somehow San Francisco gets one of these other quarterbacks that we're talking about, drafts a quarterback. I don't know where they get the quarterback from, but they no longer want Jimmy Garoppolo. Is there a value for Jimmy Garoppolo on the trade market? And if there is a value, what is the value?
If there's a value for Jimmy Garoppolo, so I guess the number one suitor for Garoppolo will still be the New England Patriots. Remember how Bill Belichick was screwed of Garoppolo because Tom Brady wanted to stay and they had to trade Garoppolo. So I guess Bill Belichick is still banking on the fact that he can turn Jimmy Garoppolo into a franchise quarterback. And if there's an opportunity, he would vouch for him and they will be able to bring him back. So as far as trade value for Garoppolo is concerned, again, you always put value according to the last thing you did for me. And apparently Garoppolo hasn't done much lately because of injury. So you already have that danger of being a damaged good, Garoppolo that is. So I wouldn't give a first rounder for him. So the best that I could give him is 2 second rounders for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Wow, 2 second rounders, really?
Yeah.
So you think Jimmy Garoppolo has more value than a Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold was 1 second rounder for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I guess
to me, if you're just going to go side by side, just those two, forget about everything else we talked about, just side by side, Jimmy Garoppolo or Sam Darnold, I'll take Darnold. He's on a cheaper contract. He's not hurt he does get injured, but he doesn't get injured like Garoppolo does. So that's how I feel about that side by side. But I mean, I'll listen to your argument.
Yeah, I believe Garoppolo is still a more established quarterback, so you have a you'll be able to evaluate him well. He has proven himself to some extent, so he does have some market that is higher than Darnold, I believe.
Okay. Well, listen, if you guys just watched this clip or just watch this part of the show, we've done this for every division in the NFL. There's never been a year like this that we've ever seen in the NFL, and there's never been a podcast like this. This is absolutely positively been our longest podcast ever. For those of you that watched from the beginning or listened from the beginning all the way until the end, hopefully we entertained you. Thank you for all your comments in the chat, and don't forget to check us out at whatsonsports.com. Go over there and check out our brand new $2 sports club. We'll be waiting for you. See ya.